16 years ago, something happened that no one in the small town of Bell Ridge, North Carolina, could ever forget. It was a warm spring morning. Birds chirped outside the windows of St. Mary's Hospital, and inside, the maternity ward buzzed. With the usual sound of life, nurses laughing quietly, monitors beeping, and the soft cries of newborns. It felt like any ordinary day, but that was before they arrived. Todd and Marissa Whitmore, young, white, and expecting their first children, walked into that hospital with hope in their hearts. They were expecting triplets. It had been a complicated pregnancy, but today was the day. The doctors were prepared. Everything seemed to go smoothly, and then the babies were born, a boy and two girls, healthy, crying, beautiful. But as the nurses handed the babies to their parents, silence fell. The joy faded. Something unspoken filled the room. The babies had dark skin, not just a little darker, not just a faint trait to be explained away. Their skin was rich and deep in tone, clearly different from their parents. The nurses exchanged puzzled looks, but they said nothing. After all, babies can surprise us. Genetics can be strange. Biology doesn't always follow expectations, but Todd, he didn't smile. He didn't even reach out to hold them. And Marissa? She looked as though the world had stopped spinning. The doctor tried to keep things calm. He reassured them, told them the babies were healthy and perfect. But the look on Todd's face didn't change. His hands remained stiff by his side. "This is impossible," he muttered under his breath. The nurses tried to celebrate the birth, offered congratulations, even joked gently to lighten the mood. But the air remained heavy. The couple barely acknowledged the babies. They didn't ask to hold them again. And when a nurse offered to explain the unusual skin tone, that it could be from some deeply hidden family trait or a 1 in a million gene expression, Todd refused to listen. Later that afternoon, DNA tests confirmed the children were biologically theirs. Still, they said no. Marissa sat in silence. Todd paced the room. They whispered to each other, not knowing the nurses could. "Here." Words like mistake, shame, and can't do this floated into the hallway, and by nightfall the decision was made. They signed the documents. They surrendered all rights, and without holding their babies one last time, they left. Just like that. They were gone, 3 tiny newborns, left behind, not because they weren't healthy, not because they weren't wanted by the world, but because of their skin, because something about them didn't match. The nurses cried that night. One of them, a woman named Gloria, stayed late just to hold the babies close. She wrapped them in the softest blankets the hospital had, whispering to each one, "You are loved. You are perfect. You belong here." The hospital couldn't stop talking about it. Whispers spread quickly. Some said the babies were a miracle. Others said it was science no one could explain, and a few believed the father had simply chosen denial, refusing to accept what was right in front of him. The doctor tried to talk them out of it before they left. "These are your children," he said gently, but they never looked back. In the days that followed, social workers arrived. The babies were placed under temporary care. A nurse named Rena gave them nicknames: Little Man, Sweet Pea, and Star. It made the nurses feel better, as if giving them names would somehow fill the empty space their parents had left behind. But everyone knew the truth. No matter how kind the hospital staff were, these children needed something more: a home, a family, someone who would choose them fully and forever. But who adopts 3 babies at once, and who adopts 3 babies born into such a complicated story? Some feared they'd be separated, placed in different homes, raised in different towns. They might grow up never knowing each other or their shared story, but just when hope began to fade, a quiet miracle walked through the hospital doors. Elliot and Monica Hughes weren't rich. They didn't live in a big house. But they had something else, hearts that were wide open. They'd been married nearly 20 years. Elliot worked as a roofer, spending long hours in the sun, while Monica was a nurse at a small clinic across town. For years, they had tried to have children, miscarriages, false hopes, painful doctor visits. They had stopped trying, but never stopped hoping. When Monica heard about the triplets from a fellow nurse, she went quiet. That night, she told Elliot. His reply, "Let's go tomorrow." They didn't hesitate. The next day, they walked into St. Mary's Hospital, two strangers holding on to a silent hope that maybe, just maybe, they were meant to find someone. When they entered the nursery, the triplets were sleeping together in one crib. Their tiny bodies curled close as if even they knew. "We belong together," Monica gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. Elliot just stood still, staring. Then, slowly, he reached out a hand and touched the blanket. "Look at them," Monica whispered. "They're perfect." A nurse explained the situation, the history, the abandonment. She gently suggested they could adopt one of the babies. Or maybe two, if they thought three was too much. But Monica didn't blink. "All three," she said. "We're not breaking them apart." And that was that. Within a month, the paperwork was finalized. The Hughes family grew from 2 to 5. Overnight, they brought the babies home to their modest two-bedroom house at the edge of Asheville. The walls were old, the floors creaked, but now love filled every corner. They gave the babies new names. The boy became Malachi, messenger of hope. The quiet girl became Lena, light. And the energetic one? They named her Talia, morning. Dew, a fresh beginning. The early days weren't easy. There were sleepless nights, crying fits, triple the diapers, triple the feedings. But Elliot built extra cribs with his own hands. Monica sang lullabies, even when she was too tired to keep her eyes open. They took turns, leaned on each other, and reminded themselves every night, we chose this, we chose them, and the babies. They blossomed. They grew into giggling toddlers, crawling across wooden floors, clapping their hands when Elliot came home from work. They clung to Monica's legs, called her Mama, and giggled when she kissed their cheeks. Yes, some people stared. Yes, strangers sometimes asked too many questions. But inside that little house, there was no doubt, no question. This was family. As the years passed, the house on Hillcrest Avenue came alive with laughter, arguments, toys scattered across the floor, and the smell of cornbread and fried chicken on Sunday afternoons. It wasn't a mansion. It didn't have a backyard pool or granite countertops, but it had something money couldn't buy: love. Real, unconditional, ride-or-die kind of love. Malachi, Lena, and Talia were now 5 years old, and though they didn't know it yet, they were growing up in a family that had moved mountains for them. Monica and Elliot were not the kind of parents who spoiled with stuff. No, they were the kind who taught through presence. Monica braided Talia's hair every morning before school, humming church songs, while the little girl wiggled in the kitchen chair. Elliot built wooden puzzles from scratch for Malachi and taught him how to hammer a nail before he could spell toolbox. Lena, soft and dreamy, liked to sit on the porch and watch the wind blow through the trees. She once told her mum, "I think the sky is whispering secrets." And Monica just smiled and said, "Then make sure you listen, baby." This was the kind of home it was, where kids could dream, where mistakes weren't punished harshly, and where every bedtime ended with hugs, prayers, and "I love you," said 3 times just to make sure it stuck. But love doesn't always shield you from the world outside. One day, when the kids were about 6, something happened that changed everything. It was parent-teacher conference day. Monica had just come home from the school with tears in her eyes. Elliot looked up from fixing a broken cabinet. "What's wrong?" he asked, concerned. She sat down at the kitchen table and whispered, "Malachi asked his teacher today. Why? He doesn't look like his parents. Elliot didn't speak right away. Monica wiped her eyes, and Lena asked if maybe we were just her temporary family. Talia said someone told her at school that adopted kids don't have real parents. Silence. Elliot got up slowly and walked to the hallway where the kids were playing. He sat all three of them down and said, "Come here, my little warriors. Daddy needs to talk to you." He picked up Malachi and placed him on his lap. Talia leaned against his leg, and Lena rested her chin on his shoulder. "Listen to me," he said softly. "You are not temporary, you are not borrowed, you are ours. God made us for each other. Just because you didn't come from Mama's belly doesn't mean you didn't come from our hearts." "But we don't look like you," Talia said quietly. "That's true," Elliot smiled. "And isn't that awesome? Look how beautiful you are. Your skin is like the richest soil where strength grows. Your hair is a crown. And your eyes? They hold fire. You were made special, not by accident." Lena looked down. "Then why didn't our first parents keep us?" And for the first time, Elliot didn't try to protect them from the truth. He said, "Because sometimes people make mistakes. They let fear win. But that's not your fault, you hear me? That's not your fault." He pulled them all close and said, "You were chosen, on purpose, with love. And I thank God every day that He gave you to us." From that moment, things changed. The kids still had questions. They still had moments where the world made them doubt who they were, but inside their home, they knew they were safe. They weren't those kids who got left behind. They were the kids who got found. Every year, on the anniversary of their adoption, Monica would cook a big dinner, fried okra, yams, baked mac and cheese, and they'd eat by candlelight like it was Thanksgiving. She called it Gotcha Day. And every year, she'd sit the kids down and say, "You were chosen, you were claimed, you are ours." They never celebrated the day they were born. They celebrated the day they were found. One day, when Malachi was 10, he came home with bruises on his cheek. Monica froze. He didn't cry. He didn't complain. He simply said, "A kid at school said I wasn't really your son." Elliot's jaw tightened. "What did you say to him?" "I didn't say anything," Malachi replied, "but when he pushed me, I hit back." Elliot nodded slowly, fighting the storm in his chest. "I don't want you fighting," he said carefully, "but I do want you standing up for who you are." That night, after Malachi went to bed, Monica looked at Elliot and whispered, "How do we protect them from a world that sees them as different?" Elliot stared at the ceiling. "We can't protect them from everything, but we can give them roots so strong nothing can shake them." And they did. They taught their kids where they came from. Not just the hospital story, but their power, their purpose. They taught them that family isn't always about biology. It's about love, sacrifice, and the people who show up. The Hughes family never had much money, but what they gave those children, it was priceless. By the time the triplets turned 13, they each had their own dreams. Malachi wanted to be a lawyer. Lena wanted to be a poet. Talia wanted to be a doctor. "Like Mama," she said proudly. And Elliot and Monica, they just wanted one thing, for the world to see their children the way they did, not as abandoned kids, not as a news story, not as a miracle, but simply as what they were, chosen, loved, home. It had been 10 years since the triplets were adopted. 10 years of healing, 10 years of building, 10 years of laughter, holidays, scraped knees, and report cards stuck to the refrigerator with magnets that said, "You did it." But peace has a way of being interrupted, and it always starts small. Letter, a knock, a voice you haven't heard in years. Monica was folding laundry in the living room when it started. She found a letter in the mailbox. No return address, just her name, written in a shaky, nervous hand. She opened it, expecting junk mail, or maybe a note from the church. But what she read made her knees go weak. "Dear Mrs. Hughes, my name is Sasha. I'm Malachi, Lena, and Talia's birth mother. I know I have no right, and I'm not asking for forgiveness, but I just want to see them once, just to know they're okay. Please." The room was silent. No TV, no music, just the slow hum of the washing machine and Monica's heartbeat thudding. In her ears, she sat on the couch for hours, letter in hand, tears running down her face. How do you protect your children when the person who once hurt them wants back in? That night, after the kids were asleep, she showed Elliot the letter. He read it, then sat quietly. Monica whispered, "What if she tries to take them?" "She can't," Elliot said, trying to stay calm. "They're legally ours." "But emotionally," Monica asked. "What if they want to meet her? What if it stirs up things they've buried?" Elliot took her hand and said, "Then we walk through it with them, like we always do." The next week, Monica didn't say a word to the kids about the letter, but Malachi noticed. "You okay, Mama?" he asked. She forced a smile. "Just tired, baby. Long day at work." But kids are smarter than we think, especially ones who've lived through storms. 2 days later, another letter came. This one was written by hand again, but not from Sasha. This time, it was from Robert, the birth father. He wrote, "I know I failed. I was young, scared, and selfish. I chose the streets over my babies, but I've been clean for 6 years. I've found God. I don't expect anything. I just want to say I'm sorry." Monica broke down. Why now? Why after all these years? Why when the kids were finally okay? That night, Monica and Elliot sat the kids down at the dinner table. No TV, no distractions, just a quiet family meal. "With a storm coming, kids," Monica began gently, "there's something we need to tell you." Malachi looked up, concerned. Lena put down her fork. Talia tilted her head. Elliot continued, "We got letters from your birth parents." The room went silent. Malachi blinked slowly. "From them." "They're not trying to take you," Monica said quickly. They want to know you're okay. They asked if maybe one day they could see you." No one spoke for a while. Then Lena asked softly, "What do you think we should do?" Monica's eyes filled with tears. "We think this is your decision. You're old enough now to choose." Malachi swallowed hard. "I don't even remember what they look like." Talia nodded. "What if I don't feel anything?" "Then that's okay," Elliot said. "There's no right or wrong way to feel. You just have to be honest with yourself." After 3 days, the kids gave their answer. They wanted to meet them just once, to hear their side, to close the loop. Monica arranged the meeting in a church basement. Neutral ground, safe space, just 2 chairs for Sasha and Robert. No hugging. No photos, just words. When the triplets walked in, Sasha burst into tears. She whispered, "You're so big. You're so beautiful." Robert looked down, ashamed. He couldn't even meet their eyes. Malachi sat with his hands folded. "Why did you leave us?" Sasha stammered. "I was on drugs. I was lost. I thought giving you up was better than watching you suffer." Lena asked, "Do you ever think about us?" "Every single day," Sasha said, tears falling. Talia looked at Robert. "Did you ever try to find us before now?" He nodded slowly. "I tried, but I didn't know how, and I didn't think I deserved to." Silence. Then Malachi spoke. "I'm not angry. I thought I would be, but I'm not. I have a good life. My parents, they loved me, they raised me." Lena added, "I'm glad you're clean, and I hope you stay that way. But we don't need more parents. We already have them," Talia finished. "We forgive you, but we're not your babies anymore. We belong to someone else now." Sasha cried softly. Robert stood up and said, "Thank you for seeing us. We'll let you go now." And just like that, they left. The door closed behind them, and the triplets stood together, taller somehow, stronger. That night, back home, Monica asked them, "How do you feel?" Malachi said, "Lighter." Lena whispered, peaceful. Talia smiled, proud. And Elliot hugged all three and said, that's because you faced your past and didn't let it define you. The past had come knocking, but it didn't break them. It reminded them who they were, not abandoned, not forgotten, but chosen twice. Over once by life and once by love.